Extraordinary by Carleen Matts Behrens and Lisa Shaffner Sohn. So, I married me a bear. 10 years ago, I was a hot mess. Not a dining room table that's got clutter on it, not that bit of dust in the corner by the front door that needs to be picked up, not even the inside of my car, filled with morning commute breakfast and coffee and makeup, bags of merchandise that needs to be returned. Nope, I'm talking an HOT hot mess. Picture everything that could possibly make you max out your homeowner's insurance policy. Flood, fire, earthquake, tsunami, tornado, atomic bomb, alien invasion, kill shot, solar flare. I could call these things acts of God, but I just can't go there. God wouldn't put me through what I went through. God loves me more than that. It wasn't my divorce that made me a hot mess, even though a lot of people might assume that. While there was pain involved, it wasn't the soul-crushing experience many people go through. My son's dad and I decided we made better friends than spouses, and leaving on good terms meant Matthew's life would be infinitely better. I guess you could say that as divorces and the reality of dual households go, we did okay. Everything has always been for the boy, after all. It also wasn't the disastrous short-term relationship I had next with an abusive narcissist that made me into a hot mess, although it certainly was the proverbial straw that broke this camel's back. My spirit sank to a level of blackness I had never felt before, and it made me afraid I would never feel the warmth of the sun again. I'd venture to say if I wasn't already a hot mess, that relationship wouldn't have happened. Neither would some of my other major missteps that I've had to forgive myself for. No, the roots of my hot messiness ran deep, all the way to my childhood and family of origin. I had people in my life who loved me deeply, yes, but there were seeds of dysfunction planted that grew into one of those invasive weed monsters you just can't seem to kill, no matter how much you hack it or spray it with poison or try to wish it away. My particular weed monster is a hostile conglomeration of shame, loss, abandonment, and boundary violation. And as happens when someone grows up in an emotional combat zone, I became a big, old, overly trusting empath. I was a peacemaker at all costs, a fixer, a people pleaser, an embarrassing oversharer, the owner of a broken compass. I was the person who saw good in everyone, even if everyone else saw rot. I gave and gave and gave until I had no strength left. I made excuses for poor behavior and allowed people to mistreat me. I was an expert at self-flogging, even taking on guilt and responsibility that didn't even belong to me. And I tried to rescue the souls of others who resembled people I had failed to rescue in the past, in hopes I would earn some sort of twisted redemption or crooked semblance of grace. Scott walked into my life 6 weeks after an atomic bomb blew me to smithereens. I had settled into the deepest corner of the bottom of a dried up well, worn down, wrung out, and completely wasted away. And what about him? Where was he? Well, I'm positive he wasn't looking for a life partner, especially not one who had baggage like mine, which I cringingly told him about the first time we met. That was not exactly the best way to start a new relationship. But something about the other made us agree to see each other again. He likes to remind me that he's the one who asked for my number and not the other way around. Something about the other made us decide to give a relationship a try. Something about the other made us choose to stay. It wasn't easy at first. In fact, our first 2 years together were filled with lava firestorm arguments, emotions that came upside down, inside out, and sideways out of our pores, as well as a record number of breakups and get-back-togethers that would make even the worst celebrity relationship offenders blush. He thinks I'm exaggerating here, but no. The timing wasn't right to make a go of it those first 2 years because we both had too much healing to do. For all intents and purposes, our last breakup should have been the end of it. Done deal. Lick our wounds, move on, chalk it up to another learning experience. But it wasn't done, even though we both thought it was, for sure. We eventually found our way back to one another, but not until we had done some significant work to be better versions of ourselves. Not perfect, mind you, but better. We both realized that even though we were strong on our own, our lives were infinitely better with the other person. And yes, even though we eventually took the leap and tied the knot under a big tree on a gorgeous day in July of 2016, we made sure to take our sweet time so that the timing would be absolutely right. Are we perfect? Are we each other's happy ever after? Was the day we got married the end of everything painful and scary and irritating and maddening about life, the universe, and everything? Were all of our wounds healed? Are we finally living our fairy tale? Nope, far from it. That's reality. That's marriage. We are two imperfect people choosing to live life together for better and for worse and all the other things the traditional marriage vows say, except for obey. Sometimes our marriage resembles the firestorm it started out as. There's a struggle between, I'm too tired and stressed to care about the mess-ness, and everything should be squared away and why can't you do this simple thing-ness. We make mistakes. We hurt each other sometimes. We're insensitive. We have to work to really hear the other person, not just listen until it is our turn to speak. We have the same damn arguments over and over and over. And did I mention over again? We drive each other crazy sometimes. The aging thing is a big drag for both of us, especially since I'm convinced he's going to have to put Alzheimer's Carleen in a home someday. Just make sure it has a good hair salon and a coffee shop, baby, and I'll be okay. But sometimes we are also the flip side of all of those things. We understand why the other person is messy or needs things to be tidy, and we give each other grace for being that way, at least for a little while. We try to do things for the other person that we know carries significant emotional meaning. We know the other person almost better than they know themselves. And we work hard to say and do things in such a way that honors them. We listen for the real story, the story underneath the story, the how and the why, the roots and the ramifications. And if there is wisdom to share, we share it, but only when the timing is right. We make agreements to fight better because fights happen. We call for and respect calls for timeouts when the emotion gets too intense to keep talking. We try to remember to reach out, to touch one another, to remind each other that we're real. We look into each other's eyes to recognize the hurt, not just see the frustration. We take deep breaths when we need to. We hold our tongues when we can, and we celebrate what makes the other who they are. We don't get bent out of shape about the other person's aging because we know that's part of the gig. And when the other person is bent out of shape about their age-related woes, we gently draw them in from the cold and back in front of the fire. Above all, our marriage gives me hope, which comes in the form of the little things and the big things. It's how he holds me when we're falling asleep, even if we're crabby. It's how he remembers stories from my childhood, like being too poor to get nice shoes, and then he buys me those exact shoes for Christmas. It's how he will always change the air filter on my car, no matter how messy it is. It's how he loves my son as if he were his own flesh and blood, even though being a step-parent is hard. It's how he sits next to me and watches plays and musicals, even though he'd much rather watch a UFC match or The Shawshank Redemption for the 100th time. It's how he listens to my recounting of dreams and pixie dust experiences and says, "I'm glad that brought you the comfort you were looking for." It's how he reminds me to be careful, to be mindful of my surroundings, and to give my trust only to those who have earned it. It's how he knows about all my darkest moments, but still sees me as light. It's how he will never allow anyone to hurt me again so deeply that I feel like dying. They would have to come through him first. It's how he reminds me of who I truly am when I myself have forgotten. It's how he stays up late to get every bit of laundry done, even though we don't thank him enough ever. It's how he honors my family, my heritage, and my need to be surrounded by the people I love in our home and at the lake. It's how he reminds me that my parents and my big brother are laughing in heaven, even though I feel like they are so far away. It's how he gives me the space and the freedom to be my own person, to live my own life and pursue creativity, which is my life force. It's how he has freely given of himself to make Matthew and me feel like we finally have a home. And it's how he tolerates flamingos in the flower beds. Lots of flamingos. It's in the gentle reality checks he gives me when I need them, even if I don't want them in the moment. It's his laughter and storytelling when we get together with good friends. And it's his bedrock commitment to me and our relationship, even when I get anxious and start playing old tapes of self-doubt that should have been erased when we chose to marry one another. It's how he makes enough coffee in the morning for me to have some too, even when I'm on summer vacation and he has to work. My husband is a man of action, protection, and strength, and he gets me, even and especially when I'm being little me. And I do the same for him. Marriage is hard work, no doubt, but we show up for it and make coffee.